who simultaneously want to revolutionize the future while respecting the past. Big donors, big impact. Like most listeners of this book, you probably have an idea of what a philanthropist looks like. You might assume philanthropists are wealthy older people who attend fancy galas. They give money and serve on boards, rarely rolling up their sleeves and pitching in to help when and where it's needed most. And while it's nice that they give away money, it mostly goes to causes that matter to wealthy older people like them. Their giving doesn't really make a difference to the problems you see every day in your community, or the issues you care about. Unless you visit a museum on your fifth grader's field trip, or find yourself in a fancy wing of a big hospital, how philanthropists give doesn't really affect your daily life that much. But this portrait of a philanthropist is way off, especially in terms of describing the next-gen donors we will introduce you to in this book. Major donors affect your life more than you might know, maybe even more than you might find comfortable. Ever been cared for by a nurse? Received a scholarship? Used a library? Consumed pasteurized milk? Then you've benefited directly from the decisions by major funders to support causes such as modern medical training, the arts, and public health. If you get your news from National Public Radio, or allow Sesame Street to entertain and educate your preschooler, or if you're a woman who's had a pap smear test, then your life is affected in a direct way by the actions of major donors. All of these innovations were driven primarily by philanthropic, rather than market or government investments. Many good things we take for granted are due in large part to wealthy donors giving big donations. Things like community centers and local parks, beautiful churches, synagogues, and mosques, a world-class higher education system, and even the ideas for a 911 emergency system and white lines on the sides of highways. The same can be said for the eradication of many bad things we no longer have to worry about, at least in the United States, like sewage in the streets, children working in factories, and diseases like polio and yellow fever. Philanthropists were the primary funders behind the development of modern mental health treatment, hospice care, and autism treatments. They helped create many of our institutions serving widows, orphans, and people with disabilities. Medical breakthroughs, such as the use of insulin to treat diabetes and antiretroviral drugs to treat HIV, were made possible by donors with singular dedications to those issues. And, of course, outside the United States, philanthropic giving by large donors, from the Rockefellers to the Gateses, has literally saved millions of lives, whether through the eradication of hookworm, the fight against tuberculosis, or the availability of anti-malarial bed nets. But, as the history of international giving shows, how and how much major donors affect our lives can sometimes be controversial. While most of us are happy that big donors in the past were behind nascent social movements such as the abolition of slavery, suffrage, and civil rights, other movements funded by philanthropists divide us just as they divide the donors themselves. For instance, major donors are backing both sides of the marriage equality and the charter school debates, both the pro-choice and pro-life movements, and both the founding of the State of Israel and the Palestinian desire for a homeland. Still think your life isn't fundamentally different because of the choices that major donors make? While they have a complicated and sometimes disputed legacy, the impact of philanthropic giants like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford on American life is undeniable. They created enduring institutions like hospitals, universities, museums, libraries, and the modern philanthropic foundation. Philanthropy today is based largely on the ideas and innovations of these corporate lions. They set the norms and shaped our collective image for how major donors give. Yet there are many others who fit into this category of big donors, and who often had tremendous philanthropic influence, but whose names and stories are not as well known. They, too, have affected our lives, but in often underappreciated ways. This pattern continues with major philanthropists today. Many people know of the work of big donors with famous last names.